Hello, YouTube. This is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. How are you all this evening? My apologies. I'm a few minutes late to my own live stream. All right. So I want to go over a couple of things. First, we're going to talk about, we are going to investigate our dragons, Nagas. What do dragons mean in different traditions? And then, probably more importantly, we're going to take a look at what real magic is and how you can actually use magic, but the mindset you need to have in order to be successful at it. And as it turns out, it's the same mindset you need for everything. And as I have said before, it's still true. The most powerful and really the only teaching of mind that you absolutely need is in the book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. You can get that book. You can look for it on Amazon. You can go to courses.thunderwizard.com and find it. That link right here. Links are here for a reason. Use them. And you can also just go onto the channel here. I read from the book. You can watch the videos as I read from the book. That book is the key to everything. All right. Excuse me. All right. So, dragons. I've had, in the past few months, I've had a crash course education in Nagas. Nagas are a real thing. And Nagas are, I would say, well, without a doubt, Nagas are my best friend. Without a doubt, Nagas are my best friend. And Nagas comes from the same word as snake. That's why it looks the same, N-A-K, S-N-A-K, or N-A-G. It's the same root, comes from the same root in the Indo-European language, means serpent. And according to Vedic mythology, the Nagas, the serpent beings, are actually beings that have the ability to shapeshift. They can go from being cobra, hooded serpents, cobras, cobra-like snakes. Australia has a hooded serpent as well, and it's huge. I've seen one in person. I've seen a couple of them, but I walked right by one when I was living there. The thing was enormous. They're not dangerous unless you corner them and threaten them, but they have the big hoods, not as big as a cobra, but they're big. And so according to Vedic astrology, Vedic mythology, the mythology of India, these beings can shapeshift between serpents, and they can also look like human beings. And these are the beings that brought spiritual practices to human beings. So it's incredibly important to understand that without doing spiritual practices, it's virtually impossible to evolve. That's why, as I say, the point of this channel is to do the work. What do I mean by doing the work? We've got the 90-day challenge, which, by the way, I have shifted it so that when you subscribe, you will be charged when you subscribe and on that same day every month, so we don't have to go through this weird thing of you subscribe and then I have to reimburse you and then it starts all over. So it doesn't matter when you subscribe, you're good from a month from that date till the next date next day, the next month. And doing that practice, doing any of the free practices, and there is no shortage. In fact, it is impossible for one person to master all of the practices that I have just on the free channel. There is literally no excuse for you not to be doing these practices. I would say 30 minutes a day, every day, minimum. There's no excuse. And as you know, I'm going to know immediately whether you put a comment on the channel or if you, on the live stream, ask a question or put a comment. I'm going to know immediately if you're doing the practices. Not because I'm psychic, because it's just obvious. It's obvious in the first couple of words. I already know if you're doing the practices. So if you think coming onto my channel and listening to me talk is going to give you something, you're wrong. The talking that I do is what you do to help get and manage the practices inside of you. We live in a universe that is based on action. It is not based on thought. It is not based on feeling. However, you must have all of your feelings and you must be conscious of all of your thoughts. But to be successful in this life, what you need is power. And with that power, you will then have the ability to make choices and take actions, and those are the things that determine your reality. So please, once again, don't waste your time. If you're just going to come onto my channel and listen to me talk, you're wasting your time. And you're wasting my time, to be honest with you. I mean, I can't tell however many people watch, I can't tell, but if you leave a comment or a question and you haven't done the work, I'm gonna know it. And so save yourself some time, do the practices. Then as you do the practices, the questions that come up will be questions based on your spirit trying to work through becoming conscious of all of the things that are inside of you now. Now you're aware. The way that this reality works is that when you wake up in this dream, you then can control it. You cannot wake up in this dream if you do not do the practices. Period. End of story. I don't care how smart you think you are. I don't care how spiritual you think you are. I don't care how how much church you go to or how many books you read or how many spiritual books you read. It's all meaningless if you don't do the work. Have I made myself clear? And the good news is that I have made it absolutely impossible to say that you don't know where to find the practices. You go onto the playlists, and if there's something that you want to know if I teach it, then you can put the effort in to figure out how to search within the channel for any search term. You want to look for runes, you want to look for tarot, you want to look for yoga, you want to look for whatever it is, you'll find out whether or not I teach it on this channel. And then do one of those practices, and then things will happen inside of you. Then you will have valuable questions, and then I'll be able to help you. Otherwise, as I said, I'm going to know immediately if you're not doing the practices, and you're going to suffer for it. I'm going to humiliate you in front of the world, not because I want to, but because it'll be obvious that you're not doing the work. All right? So, Nagas are the beings that have brought these practices to us. Maushan, these Maushan practices, guess who brought these practices? The Nagas. One of my lineage brothers who does different stuff than I do, but he talks all the time about how we are part of the snake clan. Actually, there's also some other very powerful beings that are part of the Maoshan as well, and those are the what are those insects? The mantis. The mantis beings are also beings that bring knowledge and very powerful energy practices. The mantis beings and the Nagas, both of them. So obviously mantis beings, we know where we see the reminders of them, because there are mantises. And on our planet, the insects of mantises, if you've ever interacted with a mantis, seen a mantis up close, yes, it is an insect, but there's an intelligence about it. You know, people even take mantises and turn them into pets. When you look in their eyes, there's something about them. There's an awareness about them that you don't see in other insects. I suppose what is true for the mantis insects on this planet is what we know to be true about snakes on this planet, especially the hooded ones, the hooded snakes, cobras and similar hooded snakes. When you look in the eyes of a cobra, you know that cobra sees you. Unlike, let's say, if you're out and if you're swimming in the ocean and you swim next to a shark and you try and look in the shark's eye, there's nothing there. There's nobody home. That shark doesn't know you from, you're just an object, and it can tell whether or not you're food or not. Other than that, the shark not aware of you. A lot of other animals are like that as well. They don't really have an awareness of you at all. Cobras, on the other hand, when they rise up and they look at you, you can tell when you look in their eyes, they know that they're looking at you. You can see within them a frustrated intelligence trying to get out. According to the mythology as I understand it, the Nagas, very advanced, higher dimensional beings who, as I said, came here to this planet and have been here from the beginning. As human beings were developed, these were one of the beings that were involved in helping to create the animal that the soul lives in, which we call human beings. But as you know, our bodies are primates. We're only 1% different from chimpanzees. I mean, we're almost identical. So all of these beings from other dimensions, who happen to also have homes on other planets, these beings have been working for millions of years to develop another casing for the soul. Nagas have souls just like we do. Mantis beings have souls just like we do. All other beings that are conscious beings in the universe, they have the same souls that we do. So it's really important to understand that. When you interact with these higher dimensional beings, they don't interact with you based on their species. Unlike us, we are stuck in this matrix, this 3D matrix of being in our physical primate body, unless you have been practicing, probably for many lifetimes, doing spiritual practices. I'm just now at age 59. I'm just now coming into beginning to understand my abilities and things that I can accomplish. And these beings are showing me things that I can do that I had no idea I could do. And, it's not worth talking about, but you'll have your own experience when you do the work. The thing is, a lot of these conspiracy theories have some basis in fact, but unfortunately, they don't have all the information, so they conflate and they project and they just, make stuff up. I'll give you one, for example. The conspiracy theory that says that you need to get rid of your chakras because they are alien implants. Well, I honestly don't know where chakras came from, but I do know that Nagas are the beings who have mastery over the chakras. They have the mastery over Kundalini. There's a reason why Kundalini is associated with a serpent, because it is from the Nagas that we have this gift of Kundalini awareness. But there's a bunch of other stuff that we've got going in our body. We have the lightning power, which is an energy in and of itself that surrounds the soul. I'll be interested to find out who's responsible for that. But I can tell you that the mantis beings have a strong connection to chi, strong connection to the energy meridians in the body. And when you do even postures, like there was a posture I was taught that really is a mantis posture. And when you get this posture right, the energy, the chi energy gets released in your body and a huge amount of power gets released. There's a reason why there are, martial arts called mantis. They're there for a reason. Because these are, in their truest form, these martial arts, these mantis arts are actually very powerful magical energy arts. And not too many people actually know that. Most internal martial arts have barely scratched the surface, and a lot of those secrets have been lost over time. But as we go into 5D, I believe that knowledge will come back again. So the Nagas are the serpents, and even in the Abrahamic tradition, the serpent is the one that comes to Adam and Eve and says, "Hey, would you like to get out of here?" Because we don't realize it, but the whole idea of Eden is it's a prison. They're trapped in a prison. They can't get out. And they don't even realize they're in a prison until they eat the fruit. And the forbidden fruit that the serpent says, this fruit, God doesn't want you to eat. That fruit, if you eat it, you're going to become like God. Why don't you want that? Why doesn't he want you to have that? Well, because the God they were worshiping was actually their narcissistic ego. Jehovah. Jehovah means I am. It's just pure ego, pure narcissism. And people have been worshiping their own narcissistic ego and turned it into a god, and look at the state of the world. And the serpent was the one that said, "Hey, do you want to escape from this ego matrix? Eat the fruit." And so according to Vedic mythology, the hooded serpents that are on this earth are actually, I don't know the actual myth behind it, but that there's some sort of like distant offspring. They're not actual Nagas, but they're still connected. But I can tell you this: serpents are when a light being decides they want to communicate with you. One of the ways that they will do that is they will do that through omens. And one of the most powerful omens that you can find is through serpents. Now, everybody's different, but I know when I'm going to have a visitation. If I encounter a snake, and depending on the behavior of that snake, I will know what's going to happen. I know that these guys are, that's their way of texting me. Hey, we need to talk to you. We'll meet you at such and such place. And they'll even, depending on from what direction the snake comes and what it's doing, I can tell what the experience is going to be about. And so I didn't even realize this until recently, but this has been the case my whole life. Whenever I've had powerful experiences, I've always seen a serpent beforehand. Some kind of a snake will cross my path or interact with me or in some way. And I've never been hurt by a snake. I've never been bitten by a snake. I've never been, never has that ever been an issue for me. So snakes, you should respect them. And I don't see any reason to harm them. I mean, unless, you think you're about to get bit by one or something, maybe. But other than that, you should leave them alone. They're very powerful beings and very powerful symbols of deep knowledge. And the Nagas will always bring to you forbidden knowledge, and I use that in quotes. Forbidden meaning this is the knowledge, if you knew it, this will give you power over this matrix. It'll give you godlike powers. They also give you hidden knowledge. They give you knowledge that is hidden to you, knowledge that's in your the recesses of your being, in your unconscious, knowledge that you need in order to evolve. So, well, let's talk about dragons now. So I'm equating Nagas with dragons, and I'm open to this, but depending on which culture we're talking about, dragons will have different meanings. In the Chinese tradition, dragons are often shown to be serpents, not just dragons with fire-breathing dragons with arms. But the dragons also have this same idea. In the Chinese mythology, dragons are associated with immortality. Dragons are associated, again, with hidden knowledge, with forbidden knowledge. They are associated with human beings that become perfected immortals. So there's all different kinds of spiritual ideas about enlightenment. There's enlightenment, where the Buddha was enlightened. But the actual man, the Buddha himself, that enlightenment did not give him immortality. It did not give him any special abilities, didn't give him any psychic abilities. I know you've heard different, but the actual human being who was the Buddha, was a real person who lived on this earth, he didn't have any special abilities. In fact, he wasn't even spiritual. He simply was seeking to find a way to be free from suffering. And suffering, according to him, was based on attachment. So if you could free yourself from attachment, you would be free from suffering. And one of his students, there's a very famous discourse between him and one of his students, where one of his students comes to him and says, Tathagata, the perfected one, I've been following you for, I don't know, it was a long time, months or years, I can't remember. I've been following you for years now, and I've been waiting for you to tell us what is the nature of the soul, what happens after death, is there a heaven, is there a hell? And he lists all of these spiritual things, and he says, I'm waiting for you to tell us about this, and you haven't mentioned it. And then in the style of that poetry, the Buddha responds, and he responds to each one of those things. He says, when did I ever say that I was going to tell you about the nature of the soul? When did I ever say that I was going to tell you about the gods? When did I ever say I was going to tell you about heaven or hell? When did I ever say any of these things? He says, you will never hear me talk about these things, no matter how long you follow me. And the reason for that is because I'm only interested in one thing, and that is that if you cease attachment, you will be free of suffering. That's the only thing I've ever taught. That's the only thing I ever will teach. And so that's one idea. Enlightenment, when people talk about enlightenment, that's what they're talking about. You know, the enlightenment that the Buddha had was that if you tighten the string too much, it'll break. And if you don't have any tightness to it all, it'll be loose and it won't make a sound. He was talking about discipline. Walking the line of discipline, and meditation for him was just about being able to be aware of what your attachments are so you can release them. That's enlightenment. Then there's moksha, liberation, which is what all of you want when you say you want to escape the matrix. You want liberation. Ironically, you want the thing that Buddha offered, which was the freedom from suffering, the freedom from pain. So what you really want is enlightenment, even though you say you want to escape the matrix. But as I've said many times before, if you don't deal with the sources of pain in your life, you can escape the matrix 1 billion times. And every time you escape it, you will bring your pain with you. And then you will create another hell. It might even be worse in your other matrix. So escaping the matrix is really, you're trying to free yourself from your pain, your self-induced torture and pain. And for that, just follow the teachings of the Buddha and you will have that. But liberation from reincarnation is another one. That's a whole other different thing. And then there's achieving immortality. What's the point of that? Immortality is so that you don't have to forget who you are and then go through that whole process of remembering who you are. And again, that's also an illusion, because there's benefit to forgetting who you were so that you can come at things again honestly. You don't bring the same mistakes to your spirituality. But the Chinese, what they were seeking was to become a perfected immortal. And that was not about becoming enlightened, and that was not about achieving moksha. It was about changing your body so that it would transform into an immortal body. You can call it the golden light body or the rainbow body. You can call it whatever you want. But you would shift your body out of 3D, and you and your body would both go to a higher dimension where you would be able to be eternal. Then you would continue your meditations, you would continue your practices, you would continue your spiritual growth. The idea of becoming a perfected immortal wasn't what a lot of you are hoping for, which is that you'll achieve enlightenment and all your problems will go away and you won't have to do anything. But the truth of the matter is, and I believe this based on my interactions with my light being friends as well, is that, you know, once you achieve one level of freedom or enlightenment, there's a whole other level of learning that goes on. But it's actually quite beautiful and quite wonderful and interesting and entertaining and pleasing and beautiful, as opposed to what most of us go through here in 3D, which is actually quite challenging. So the Nagas are one of the beings that bring to us these practices. And if you don't do the practices, it's going to be virtually impossible for you. I mean, I would like to say, I want to say it will be impossible for you to make any headway. I'm not going to say that because I've learned that almost nothing is impossible. The only thing that I can say that is impossible, fear, anger, judgment, resentment, these negative feelings will not be something you can hold on to if you move up to a higher level. That's why those of you who think that higher level beings, false beings of light are imprisoning you, it's just not possible. You can't move to a higher level dimension and hold on to those negative feelings. Any being that lives above 3D only wants what is best for you. They will never want to do any harm to you. They will never want to trap you or limit you in any way. They only will want to see you as your highest self, and they will only want to help you achieve your greatest happiness. And if you can accept that and let that go into your awareness, you'll be able to accomplish a lot, because fear is by far the biggest block to anything. Having said that, let me move into the next thing, because I also said we're going to talk about magic and what kind of magic you can use to manifest. And there's nothing wrong with magic. Magic is just a word, and it just means to accomplish something that seems impossible to 3D laws of reality. But as it turns out, our three-dimensional reality is very malleable, and in fact is a programmable matrix. You program it. And so magic is just learning again to wake up in the dream so that you have the power over changing your reality, manifesting exactly what you want. And again, my friends are showing me that there's no limits to this. There's literally no limit to what you can manifest. And if I even began talking to you about some of the stuff that they're showing me that we can manifest, I'm not prepared. I am not prepared to put that power into your hands, because I don't know all of you well enough. But nevertheless, that power is there if you learn how to take it. But you got to drop the fear first. Drop the fear, the power will be available to you. So somebody asked me, and again, I'm going to know if you ask a question, if you leave a comment, I'm going to know immediately whether or not you're doing the practices. I immediately knew this person was not doing the practices. This person asked about a specific magical practice that I teach on the free channel. He wanted to know if he could use that magical practice to get rid of his fears. Right off the bat, I knew he wasn't doing the practices. Because if you do the practices, you know that trying to make your feelings go away is impossible. So there's another thing that right now in 3D, that's not possible. You can't make your feelings go away. Fear is a feeling. When I tell you to drop the fear, what I'm telling you to do is I'm telling you to drop the beliefs that you have. False beings of light trying to destroy you, the devil wants to kill you, whatever it is, whatever your fears are. The elites have the power to destroy your life. They're doing horrible things to the planet, but it's only because you allow them to do it. And again, how do I know that you're full of fear if you believe that? Because if I tell you that, you're going to get angry with me. If I say, well, the elites are running the world because you allow them to do it. And if your first response is to get mad at me and tell me why you didn't do that, you didn't empower them, you didn't bring them into manifestation, then what you don't realize is what you're telling me is that you're a helpless victim. And so if I agree with you, and I, on my channel, go into detail, because you never hear me go into detail about politicians. For a while, I tried to go into detail about some of the things going on with pharmaceuticals. And I'm grateful that I wasn't allowed to do it, because it was really, it was a short-lived conversation. And as we're seeing, it's becoming less of an issue as time's going on. But I'm glad that I was dissuaded out of doing that, because it's a waste of time. You are not a victim. And if you want to argue with me about how the elites are doing it to you, even if you tell me all the things that's going on in the news, which I never watch, and all the things that politicians are doing, which I don't follow, I'll believe you that they're doing all kinds of horrible things. But I don't put any energy into that. And so guess what? It doesn't bother me. The universe always guides me if I need to be in a specific place in the world that'll keep me safe. I always get guided to, I end up living somewhere I want to live, and it also happens that happens to be the safest place. For a while, Florida was the safest place in the world to live. It's still a safe place to live in terms of freedoms. So he was asking me, can he do this magical practice to get rid of his fears? And as you know, anytime somebody comes onto the channel, either live stream or on the comment section, and asks, how do I get rid of these feelings? How do I get rid of my fears? How do I overcome my fears? My first response is, who told you you were supposed to get over your fears? My ancestors, the Norse, their mantra was, those who die in battle go to Valhalla. They didn't say those who vanquish their fears and never feel uncomfortable about taking any action. No, they said those who die in battle. They didn't say those who didn't fear dying in battle. They didn't say those who literally crapped their pants before they went into battle. The people who avoided problems. No, they said people who faced their fears, not overcame their fears, faced them. It's an action. You face that fear and you take action on it. So I'm never going to tell you any method to help you get over your fears. That's never going to happen. And the other thing that's the most important part about magic is that magic is created when you have a positive intention. Trying to free yourself from an uncomfortable feeling is a negative intention which will get you nowhere. It doesn't do anything for you. Again, I've shared it a bunch of times, but if you want to learn how to be an actor, you're going to go to acting class and your acting teacher is going to tell you to take positive choices. Meaning you're sitting there and you're trying to get, you're whatever, who cares what the scene is. And the director stops and says, what is your intention? What does your character want? And when you say, well, he just doesn't want to, the director's going to go, that's a weak choice. You have to have a positive choice. That's a negative. You can't play a negative. You can't play, I just don't want this to happen. I just want to avoid that. You can't play that. You have to play what you want. And then what ends up happening, what creates a scene with two actors and you like watching the scene, is that there's conflict. And the conflict is two people want two different things and they have to bump up against the other person's desire, which causes them to have to try and find a way around. They still have a positive intention. So this is true about life. You can't get through life if you're trying to avoid things. If you're trying to get away from negative feelings, you're trying to overcome your fears, doesn't mean anything. It's negative. Life doesn't work like that. It's like telling your computer to not do something. The software in your computer says, I need you to tell me what to do, not what not to do. Your reality is the same way. The matrix you live in is the same way. It's waiting for you to tell it what you want, not what you don't want. If all you focus on is the things that you don't want, in other words, you go to the universe and you say, I want to get rid of my fears. The only thing that the universe hears is fears. Oh, okay. So what was it you're afraid of again? Oh, you want me to manifest the things you're afraid of? Okay, I can do that. That's why people who try and get over their fears never get over their fears, and they're always where they're at. That's why those of you who have come to me and wanted me to help you find your perfect career, and you keep telling me what you don't want, those are the things you end up having. This is why people who are obsessed with money are always either they're poor or they feel poor. Because money is nothing. Money is a resource. Resources show up after you do the work. That's why I can tell when you're doing the practices, because you will be asking me questions about how to accomplish things, not how to avoid things. All right. So we took care of those two things. I'm a lot more interested now in the idea of dragons than I was before. The only culture where dragons don't seem to have a clear definition is in the Western tradition. The Chinese dragons are very clear. They're pretty much Nagas. They're associated with human beings that achieve immortality, human beings that achieve supernatural abilities. They're associated with dragons. Dragons themselves are associated with wisdom and power. Of course, Nagas in the Vedic tradition are associated with forbidden power, knowledge, spiritual knowledge. And in the Western tradition, dragons go back and forth. In the mythology, dragons are human beings. I mean, the closest thing in a lot of Western mythology, dragons are actually what we would call reptilians. And reptilians are simply human beings that are not operating from their soul. They're operating from their primate instincts, what we call the reptilian brainstem. You know, they either want to fuck it or eat it or own it or kill it. You know, that's basically the basic human drives when you're not living or run away from it. Your fear. Those of you who have fears, I shouldn't say have fears. Those of you who act on your fears. Those of you who indulge in your beliefs associated with fears. I mean, are you listening to what I'm saying? That the place to be, the ideal place to be for a human being when they have achieved enlightenment, whatever that is that you literally have no fear of anything. Not only do you not have any fear, but there's no limitations. You can, I mean this as literally as possible, you can do anything you can imagine. As long as it's something that is a positive choice that brings you joy, that does not cause harm or limitation to anybody else. So, there's a few of you on here, I know who you are. You're already thinking about, oh, I can do this, and what you really want to do is you want to have control over other people, and you think that that means something, and it doesn't. No, being a god, having unlimited power, means that you only do the things that bring you joy, that simultaneously empower other people. You never seek to gain something that means that you have something that somebody else doesn't. If you think that you have to take something away or defeat somebody else to have what you want, you're already in that negative fear-based reptilian brainstem. When you're in your perfection, you have everything available to you. And the last thing that's on your mind is trying to get involved in somebody else's free will or limit somebody else's free will or cause somebody harm or punish somebody else. If those things are in your mind, then you're not in the space of what it is to be a god. I mean, you think about it. people who worship deities. You can't worship a deity unless you're a Christian. Unless you're a Christian or a Muslim. You can't worship a deity that judges you. Because why would you? You don't want to worship a deity that's got it in for you. And so that assumes that whether it's Krishna or Odin or Thor or Zeus, these deities you assume see you in a positive light and want to help you. And you can't want to help somebody if you're judging them. So, point being, if you can drop all of your judgment and drop all of your fear and drop all of your competition and drop all of the things associated with people at each other's throats, then you get to be God. Now, if you want to be God and you want to be completely, totally omnipotent, to be able to do anything, first requirement is you can't have any judgment for any other beings. Right there. Every time you have judgment, it stops you. So that's the first thing you got to overcome. And this is where the spiritual practices come in. This is where meditation comes in. This is where energy work comes in, because then all of your self-imposed limitations come up, because you can't be judging somebody else and love yourself. Can't do it. If you're judging somebody else, it's because you're judging in them the thing that you judge in yourself that you're unable to look at. So you do the energy practices and all of your self-directed negativity comes to the surface. You release it, you work through it, and then you expand and you become closer and closer to becoming that infinite being. And imagine a multiverse filled with omnipotent beings. That's where we're headed. It's a really wonderful place. Okay, having said that, I babbled. I'm willing to go ahead and open it up for questions. I do prefer questions, which is if you have a question, write the word question and share your question. And of course, if you have a feeling, share your honest feelings. And again, I'm going to know immediately whether or not you've done the work. Thundra says hello. She is one of my astrologers, thundra.thunderwizard.com. She's got Spirit Lounge, also is one of my rune readers, Grace, grace.thunderwizard.com. She's also a healer as well. And Vincent.thunderwizard.com, that's his website, Vincent.thunderwizard.com. You can see all the stuff that he does. He's got there in the chat. You can go check him out. Patrick.thunderwizard.com. Everybody showed up here. He is also one of my astrologers as well, and a very powerful Taoist shaman in his own right. Patrick, Patrick.thunderwizard.com. Black Earth Productions says hello. You can check out his YouTube channel, Black Earth Productions, and he's got a website, blackearthproductionswithaz.com. Let's see, what else? Bryce Gertzen, honest feeling, eternal gratitude for participating in the reality field. Gratitude is a great thing. Kim B's going to do something outside, but let's see what she says here. Follow up on Mandela Effect. I finally found a picture. I could see the Ford emblem on the old truck we used to have. It's the F with the little curly Q on it. Okay, so great. So Kim B, let's be clear about that. The idea of the Mandela Effect, first off, is that that our time stream has changed. The Mandela Effect isn't that you remember something incorrectly. I'm sure you understand this. It's that, wait a second, I lived a reality where things were a certain way, and now things are different. And the idea is that actual reality shifted. So the Ford emblem, you mean the Ford logo. The Ford logo, assuming that, I remember it this way. It was just Ford with a slash through the F. And now it's got this little curly Q on it. And it's got some other little curly Q that doesn't make any sense. And when you go back in time, you actually see that that was the first logo. That's actually, according to actual history, the real timeline, not some faked, because some people think that the elites went back and changed all of the documentation. And I mean, again, it feeds that fear-based reality. But what's more interesting is that reality itself has shifted. And I've shared it on here. I've given up on documenting the Mandela Effect because I get it now. But there's one you can find real simple. You can go look for the Life magazine. You can go look it up right now. Life magazine photo Kennedy's car. You will see a photograph that is authenticated of the actual car that Kennedy was in when he was shot. And it's a two-seater. It's a two-bench seat. It's just a car. And then when you watch the Zapruder film, number one, it has shifted. The angle has shifted. But on top of that, it's not a four-seater, it's a six-seater. So the idea is that there is residual evidence of authentic historic material that completely contradicts other authentic historic material that says that our history has changed. And I'm saying this. So what you're saying is that you found a picture of the old truck that you used to have, and it has the curlicue on it. And so what you're saying, if you're agreeing with me, is that reality shifted, that everything you have, pictures will change, films will change. So when you have residual stuff where you have two things that can't exist, like that authenticated picture from Life magazine, 1963, and the Zapruder film from 1963, and they have the same car, one has four seats, one has six, those can't exist in the same timeline. It's not possible. And one of the beliefs that I've rejected, but when I was flipping out on it, I thought that the Mandela Effect meant that our timeline has changed and that I had shifted over to a new timeline. And the more I thought about that, that didn't make any sense, because if you take two random timelines and smash them together, you're not going to have very neat little things shift. I mean, everything will change. You'll have people duking it out in the streets and shooting each other, because some people will be driving on the left side of the road and other people driving on the right side of the road. I mean, you will have absolute chaos. The entire world would blow itself up. So there's no way, it's just not possible that two timelines converged. Because why would the only things that would change in timelines would be television shows and songs and iconic things that you gauge history on? It just doesn't make any sense. What does make sense is that they're messages. These are messages from our future self, our future selves that have moved into this new 5D reality, which is coming. We sent messages back to ourselves by changing history. And the messages within the changes are what's amazing. Now, some of it, I don't know what the message is of the Ford emblem. It's just, Ford is so iconic, there's no way people would miss that. That's why people, who've been following Ford or worked with Ford have been like, that curlicue was never there. I've worked for Ford for 20, 30 years. That wasn't there. That's designed just to get your attention. I don't know what the message is about Kennedy's car. There's some message there I haven't figured that out yet. But all the other messages are very clear. It's a positive message. And the message that we are giving ourselves is we are moving into a better reality. And the message is always associated with people not being devalued or there being hope. For instance, the sun will come out tomorrow. I love you tomorrow. You're always a day away. That means you never get to tomorrow. That changed to you're only a day away, which means tomorrow is coming. A better tomorrow is coming. Um, all the stuff in the movies, Dirty Harry, when he's that famous line, do you feel lucky, punk? I saw that. I watched it on TV as a kid over and over again, and he was really mean. And he did that thing where he talked out of it. He was just a mean, scary person, and you thought he was going to kill the guy. And now you look at him now, and he's like all smiling and joking. And he says, "You got to ask yourself, do you feel lucky today? Well, do ya, punk?" I mean, it's just, what am I watching here? The message is very clear. It's you got to ask yourself, do you feel lucky? In other words, the message is luck is coming for you. And the guy ended up not getting his head blown off. He was lucky. Gracie, the Burns and Allen TV show and movies and stage show, it was always the same. He would, when it was the end of the show, he would say, because Gracie was a ditz, right? The character she played she was a ditzy, dumb woman. And that was funny back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Making fun of women and devaluing them and seeing them as being less intelligent and not that smart. That was funny. And so the joke was, he would say, at the end, he would say goodnight, Gracie. And she'd say, "Good night, Gracie." In other words, she was an idiot. But now she's never said it. Even though there's a movie that's titled "Good Night, Gracie," even though the title is still there, he says, "Say good night, Gracie," and she says good night. She's never said that. The message is very clear. Women will not be devalued. Doesn't matter your sex, doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter your sexual preference. You will not be devalued in the world to come. And it's a message. So if we can get out of our fears and hear the message, the new reality will come. That's the other message. If you guys can drop the fear, drop the devaluation, stop devaluing yourself and devaluing others, the new day will come. Anyway, I normally don't respond to that, but that was at least something slightly interesting. Granite Doc, question. If you have the power, okay, you should know that whenever you ask a question starting with the if, you're not asking a question. You're making an assumption, and then you're wanting to shove your conclusion down my throat. And I tend not to respond well to those questions. So it's not really a question. It's a passive-aggressive way to either challenge me or get me to co-sign your belief. Now let me read your question and see if I'm right. If you have the power to manifest anything you want and fulfill all your desires, what is the point of manifesting anything? I don't know what you're asking. Let me ask you this. Did you feel good writing that question? Like, did you have joy? When you wrote the question, was your thought, the answer that he gives me is going to help me make my life better? Because I read it and it doesn't make me feel good at all. It's like, what's the point of living? That's kind of what you're saying. If you have the power to manifest anything you want, fulfill all your desires, what's the point of manifesting anything? It's a weird question. And it tells me that you're in a lot of pain. And I know you haven't done the work. You're on my channel. You're not doing any of the work. I don't know why you're here. I don't know why you're watching this video. I don't know what it is you want to accomplish. What is it you honestly think I'm going to say to that question that's going to make you happy? I don't want to live in that world. That world where, life is meaningless. And I don't understand it. The only thing I get the moment I finished that question is I had a horrible feeling in my gut. Like that, it felt horrible because I now have to live in your brain and feel your feelings, and I know that you're full of resentment. I know that you feel powerless, and it angers you. You have a block. You obviously don't. You have some self-directed judgment on yourself. If you were to manifest everything you want and fulfill your desires, you obviously have negative feelings about that. So I don't know who it was in your life. It was your parents. It was somebody who shamed you out of getting what you wanted. You went to your mom and wanted something, and she'd tell you to shut up or slap you across the face or turn away, or somehow she made you feel shameful for wanting anything. And that's very sad to me. I understand it, but it's very sad. And just to give you an example, I mean, if you have the power to manifest anything you want and fulfill your desires, what's the point? Well, you do this all the time. You just only do it in the things that you allow yourself to do it with. You need to breathe. If you don't breathe, you'll die. Guess what? You get to breathe whenever you want. And you can breathe as much or as little as you want. You get to eat pretty much whatever you want. I mean, if you can go to the store and you can get chicken, fish. If you're a vegetarian, you can get vegetarian dishes. You can get frozen food. You can get pre-made food. And I know that you do go to the store and get the foods that you want to eat. So the truth is, you already do this all the time. I could say the same thing about food. You have the power to eat as much or as little food as you want. And since you have the power to eat as much or as little food as you want, what's the point in eating anything? It doesn't make any sense. So, welcome to the channel. My suggestion is spend more time watching the videos and do the work. I mean, unless you want to stay miserable. You sound miserable to me. Do the work and you don't have to ask these ridiculous questions. Vincent.thunderwizard.com, honest feeling. I've been seeing a girl for about a month now and I'm starting to catch feelings. Oh, is that like catching a cold? Are you getting infected? I keep overthinking things and tell myself not to screw it up or be too clingy. Advice? Yes. Talk to your sponsor. Go to meetings. Talk about it. And learn. You'll figure it out. There isn't anything you're experiencing that everybody else hasn't also experienced. Congratulations. That's awesome. This is what's called problems of abundance. You have a relationship and you're having normal issues, but you didn't have it before. Now you do. Vincent.thunderwizard.com, honest feeling continued. I'm in shock that I've found a kind lady that seems to really like me. Good for you. Seems too good to be true. Feelings of unworthiness and not wanting to scare her away are coming up. Yeah. So same as before, you have your feelings, you acknowledge all of your feelings, and you take constructive action. And for you, you're going to CODA, go to meetings, talk to your sponsor, work the steps, and just take it one day at a time. There you go. No other questions? Not even silly questions that make me psychoanalyze you? No questions whatsoever? All right, so as I've said, the 90-day challenge, the Patreon, today, finally, Patreon gave me the opportunity to switch it so that when you sign up, whatever day of the month it is, you will get charged that day and then you'll get charged again that same day a month later. This way I don't have to go through that weird nonsense of if you sign up, in the last week that I offer to reimburse you so that you don't double pay, blah, blah, blah. Now we never have to worry about that again. So I have to say again, this channel is about doing the work. And the work that I've given you, I've only given you exercises that get me high. I do these exercises not because they're the right thing to do or because they're spiritual. You know, like when I was in Christianity, they would say you have to read the Bible, you know, and so you would read the Bible to be a good Christian, and you would pray and you would go to church, and those were the things that you did. And whether you liked it or not, you did it because you were supposed to, and you were supposed to please God and all that. So the only exercises I've ever taught are exercises that are fun for me. I do them because they get me high. I get a physical high from doing them. So when I sit here and tell you, do the work, I'm not telling you to do, you know, hit yourself in the head with a hammer. I'm telling you to go find out of the infinite numbers of practices that I have, find the ones that are fun. Doesn't matter which ones you do, just do something. And then when you do those practices, whatever they are, whether they're runes, whether they're mantra, whether it's the 90-day, or whether it's the free stuff, whether it's the HUUL breath, the HUUL breath, which I, you know, am plastering all over the channel 24/7. Whatever it is that you do, find the ones that make you feel good, that are easy to do, so you don't have to force yourself to do it. Then what's going to happen is the cells in your body will change, your DNA will change, you will become aware of all of the negative garbage, like you will, granted, Doc, if you do the work in a month. In fact, here's my challenge to you, granted, Doc. Do the work. I don't care which one it is. Do the Awakening the Immortals every day for 30 days. Then come back and look at this question and tell me if it just doesn't seem absolutely ridiculous to you. It's because, as I said, I can tell you're not doing the work. Nobody asks that question if they're becoming aware of their negative feelings and releasing them and transforming them. So my challenge to everybody listening here, if you're only coming here and watching my channel and you're not doing the work, I challenge you to find something. The free stuff, whatever it is, and do it. And I don't know why everybody isn't signed up to the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. It is the most powerful, the most advanced spiritual practice in the history of the human race combined together. You won't find it anywhere in history or on anybody else's anywhere. I guarantee you that. I mean, I've been doing it for long enough. I can say that without any ego attached to it. It's just a fact. It's the most powerful, the most effective spiritual practice out there. I don't know why people aren't doing it. I mean, for the amount of money that it costs to go to sit in line at Starbucks in your car and get your Starbucks coffee every day, the amount of money that it would, less than that, you could be doing this and you could be achieving all this stuff that we're talking about. So all these links are here, the maoshan.thunderwizard.com, courses.thunderwizard.com, all of my books, everything else, and thunderwizard.com again. All right, so nobody asked any questions while I was doing all that business, so I guess we're done. All right, guys, that's it for me. Keep your eyes peeled. More to come. The HUUL breath, I'm putting that back on as soon as I get off here. Listen to that. Have that play in the background. Chant it. This is going to bring this shift, this solar flash, this new wave. It is coming. And that HUUL breath was given to me by the Sun and Mother Earth. Both of them gave this to me. It is a combination of the Earth and the Sun, which is going to create that solar pulse, which will hit the Earth, shift us up to the next level. And that, of course, is just available to you. Share it with your friends. The more people that do it, the faster it'll come. All right, Atham Animist, honest feeling. I feel as though the HUUL breath is helping me to become more comfortable with being to myself. I notice my interactions with family members improving as well, which gives me joy. That's awesome, my friend. Thank you for sharing that. And it makes me very happy to hear that. If it just helps one person, that's enough. But I know it's helping a lot more than just one. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, Atham Animist. All right, that's it for me, guys. I wish you all the best. I will see you guys all next time. Take care of yourselves.